Hey everybody, Rocky here. So I have a confession. Sometimes I find myself endlessly scrolling through social media. You know the feeling, right? You just get sucked into that vortex of memes, news, and targeted ads. It's like a weird digital labyrinth we can't escape. And it got me thinking, why is it so hard to look away? Why do we spend hours on these platforms even when we know we should be doing other things like, living our actual lives? That's what we're talking about today, social media content addiction. We're going deep, DFTBA style, into the hows and whys of this digital dependence. We'll unpack the science, the psychology, and the very real consequences, because understanding the problem is the first step to finding a solution. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. Okay, let's talk algorithms. These things are like the invisible puppet masters of the internet, controlling what we see and how long we see it for. Social media platforms are designed to keep us engaged, and algorithms are their secret weapon. They track every like, every comment, every share, every minute we spend scrolling. And they use that data to create a personalized feed curated to keep us hooked. Think about it. You're more likely to stay on a platform if you're constantly seeing content that you find interesting or engaging. And it's not just about showing us what we like. Algorithms also understand what keeps us clicking. They've figured out that controversy, outrage, and even negativity can trigger powerful emotional responses. And guess what? Emotional responses translate to more engagement. So we end up in these echo chambers, constantly bombarded with content that reinforces our existing beliefs and biases. It's like being trapped in a feedback loop of our own making, and breaking free can be incredibly difficult. But knowing how these algorithms work is the first step to regaining control. All right, let's get scientific for a second. Ever heard of dopamine? It's a neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger in our brains, and it plays a huge role in how we experience pleasure and reward. When we do something enjoyable, like eating a delicious meal or hanging out with friends, our brains release dopamine and we feel good. This is a totally natural and healthy process. It's how our brains motivate us to repeat behaviors that are beneficial for our survival. But here's the thing about social media. It's engineered to trigger dopamine release in a very specific way. Every notification, every positive comment sends a little surge of dopamine to our brains. It's like a mini reward, and it keeps us coming back for more. This is what we call instant gratification, and social media is full of it. The problem is, this constant stream of mini rewards can actually rewire our brains over time. We become so accustomed to these quick hits of dopamine that we start to crave them, and we need more and more to feel the same level of satisfaction. Let's talk about FOMO, fear of missing out. It's that nagging feeling that something exciting or important is happening somewhere else, and we're not a part of it. Social media plays a huge role in fueling FOMO. We see our friends' perfectly curated feeds filled with pictures of amazing vacations, delicious meals, and exciting social gatherings. And even though we know that social media often presents an idealized version of reality, it's hard not to compare ourselves and feel like we're somehow falling behind. This fear of missing out drives us to constantly check our phones, refreshing our feeds every few minutes to make sure we haven't missed anything important. It's like a compulsion, and it can be incredibly difficult to resist. And the worst part, FOMO doesn't just disappear when we log off. It seeps into our offline lives, making us feel anxious and inadequate, even when we're engaged in activities we usually enjoy. It's a vicious cycle, and it's important to recognize how social media contributes to this feeling. Okay, let's talk about how content is designed to keep us hooked. Because here's the thing, social media platforms are businesses, and their primary goal is to make money. And how do they make money? By selling our attention to advertisers. The longer we stay on their platforms, the more ads we see, and the more revenue they generate. So they've become masters at creating content that evokes strong emotional responses. Think about the videos that go viral. The news stories that dominate our feeds, the memes that make us laugh or cry, they often tap into our deepest fears, insecurities, and desires. They make us angry, they make us sad, they make us outraged, and sometimes they even make us feel good. The point is, they make us feel something, and those emotions keep us engaged. We get caught up in the drama, the controversy, the endless cycle of outrage and validation. It's an emotional roller coaster that's designed to keep us strapped in for the ride. Let's be real, we all crave validation to some extent. It's a basic human need to feel accepted and appreciated. And social media has created this whole new system for seeking and receiving validation. Likes, comments, shares, followers, they've become the new currency of social worth. We post something online and we get a little hit of dopamine every time someone interacts with it. It's like a little pat on the back from the internet telling us we're doing something right. But here's the problem. When we start to rely on social media for validation, we give away our power. We become dependent on the opinions of others, constantly seeking their approval and affirmation. And the thing is, social media validation is fleeting. It's based on superficial metrics that don't reflect our true worth. We can get caught up in this endless cycle of chasing likes and comments, and it can be exhausting and ultimately unfulfilling. So, we've talked about the algorithms, the dopamine hits, the FOMO, the emotional manipulation, and the validation trap. But what's the real cost of social media addiction? Well, it can affect our mental health. Studies have shown a correlation between excessive social media use and increased rates of anxiety, depression, loneliness, and low self-esteem. When we're constantly bombarded with idealized versions of reality, it's easy to feel inadequate and insecure. And it's not just our mental health that suffers. Social media addiction can also impact our relationships, our sleep, and our overall well-being. We spend less time connecting with loved ones in person, we sacrifice sleep for late-night scrolling sessions, and we neglect our physical health. It's important to remember that social media is a tool. It can be used for good, for connecting with others, for sharing information, and for building communities. But like any tool, it can be misused, and when we let it control our lives, it can have serious consequences. It's time to start setting boundaries, to reclaim our attention, and to prioritize our well-being. So there you have it, a crash course in social media content addiction. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but by understanding the factors at play, we can start to take back control. Remember, it's not about quitting social media entirely. It's about using it consciously and intentionally. In our next video, we're going to talk about practical strategies for combating social media addiction. We'll explore ways to set boundaries, manage our time, and cultivate healthier digital habits. Because here's the thing, our attention is precious. It's the most valuable resource we have. Let's not waste it on algorithms and endless scrolling. Let's use it to connect with the people we love, to pursue our passions, and to live meaningful lives. Until next time, don't forget to be awesome.